This is a WW3 update. It's currently 9 a.m. Eastern Time on the 30th of January in the United States. We open with news updates regarding the possible war between the U.S. and Iran. The Biden administration is contemplating a substantial and severe military response against Iran. This potential action is in retaliation for the deaths of 3 United States soldiers in Jordan, which is believed to be the result of a drone attack carried out by Iranian proxies. The situation is deemed serious enough that continuous live coverage and updates are being considered, indicating the likelihood of imminent U.S. action. This response is not anticipated to be limited to Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria, but could directly target Iran itself. The situation is escalating rapidly, and there is a sense of urgency for individuals to make last-minute preparations for a potentially significant military conflict. Following the potential U.S. retaliation against Iran, there are also significant developments in military movements and preparations. The U.S. has been observed making notable military movements, indicative of its preparation for potential action. A B-52 nuclear bomber was reported flying over eastern Texas, having taken off from Barksdale Air Force Base. This movement is particularly noteworthy due to the bomber's capabilities. Additionally, there has been an unusually high number of aerial refuelers sent to the United Kingdom. While the exact reason for these deployments is not clear, they could be related either to the escalating situation with Iran or to a massive NATO exercise involving 990,000 troops. Concurrently, the Russian Ministry of Defense has taken the significant step of evacuating some of its forces from Syria. This includes withdrawing from an airbase utilized by Iranian proxies and where Iran transports weapons into Syria. This Russian movement suggests anticipation of potential U.S. strikes in the region, further escalating the tension and military readiness in the Middle East. As the situation with military movements intensifies, there is also a parallel development in strategic discussions within the U.S. government, highlighting the seriousness of the situation. High-level discussions are taking place among U.S. officials, including President Biden and his national security team, regarding the possible responses to the situation in the Middle East. A wide variety of response options are being considered, encompassing potential targets in Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The discussion suggests that strikes could be extensive, hitting multiple targets across these countries. The primary aim of these potential actions is to re-establish deterrence in the region while ensuring that the responses are consequential for the Iran-backed groups and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) in Iran. The planning and preparations for these response options are still underway, indicating the complexity and critical nature of the decisions being made. This heightened state of alert and preparation underscores the gravity of the situation and the potential for significant military action in the near future. The discussions within the Biden administration are not only focused on the selection of specific targets in Syria, Iraq, and Iran, but also on the broader strategic implications of any military action. These deliberations are indicative of a thorough and cautious approach, weighing the various military and political consequences of different levels of response. The options on the table include not just limited strikes, but also more extensive operations that could significantly impact the region's balance of power. The nature of these discussions, involving a large variety of response options, points to a deep understanding of the complexity of the regional dynamics. The U.S. is carefully considering how to balance the need to send a strong message to Iran and its proxies with the goal of maintaining regional stability. This includes evaluating the potential reactions from Iran and other regional players, as well as the broader international community. Furthermore, the intent to return to deterrence suggests that the U.S. is looking to reassert its influence and capability in the region, possibly signaling a shift in its Middle East policy. The term consequential in the context of these discussions implies that the U.S. is contemplating actions that would have significant and lasting effects, aiming to alter the current trajectory of regional tensions. In summary, these high-level security discussions in the U.S. government are reflective of a multifaceted strategy, one that considers the immediate need for retaliation against Iran, while also taking into account the long-term objectives of regional stability and deterrence. The ongoing planning and preparations indicate a careful approach, balancing the urgency of the situation with the need for a measured and effective response. Amidst these strategic discussions and military preparations, there's also a significant political dimension unfolding, as evident from the latest developments in U.S. congressional involvement. Senate briefing on Middle East crisis, a crucial briefing for all U.S. senators is being convened, likely to discuss the escalating crisis in the Middle East. This briefing, involving the Biden administration, is a critical step, indicating the severity of the situation. Such a comprehensive briefing suggests that the administration is seeking to keep the Senate informed and possibly gain broader political support for any potential military action. The involvement of the entire Senate in this emergency meeting underlines the potential for significant policy decisions or military actions that might require legislative approval or at least a consensus among lawmakers. This level of engagement with the Senate also hints at the potential for actions that go beyond routine military operations, possibly requiring new authorizations or the invocation of existing legislative frameworks for military action. Moreover, the decision to hold a private vote, as mentioned in the transcript, is indicative of the sensitive nature of the discussions and the desire to prevent any strategic details from being leaked to potential adversaries. This approach reflects the delicate balance the administration must maintain between maintaining transparency with lawmakers and ensuring operational security. In essence, this Senate briefing represents a crucial intersection of military strategy and political process, demonstrating the U.S. government's comprehensive approach to handling the complex and rapidly evolving situation in the Middle East. This convergence of military strategy and political engagement leads to a closer examination of specific incidents that have further complicated the regional dynamics. Confusion in U.S. air defense. A significant incident was reported involving U.S. air defenses during the attack in Jordan, where they mistakenly identified an enemy drone as a U.S. drone. This error highlights a critical challenge in modern warfare: the difficulty of accurately identifying and responding to unmanned aerial threats in a timely and effective manner. This confusion in the heat of the moment points to possible vulnerabilities in the U.S. air defense system, particularly in distinguishing between friendly and hostile unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. The incident underscores the complexities and risks inherent in drone warfare, where the identification and interception of drones become increasingly challenging, especially when they are operating in contested or sensitive areas. The reference to this incident by a major publication like the Wall Street Journal adds credence to the report, suggesting that it is a matter of significant concern. This mishap not only had immediate tactical implications, leading to the unfortunate death of U.S. soldiers, but also potentially broader strategic ramifications. It raises questions about the readiness and capability of U.S. forces to counter similar threats in the future, especially in high-tension environments like the Middle East. In summary, the incident of air defense confusion during the Jordan attack not only represents a tactical setback, but also signals a larger challenge in drone warfare and air defense. It highlights the need for advanced detection and response systems capable of effectively managing the growing threat posed by UAVs in modern conflict zones. As the focus shifts from the internal dynamics of U.S. military strategy to the broader international arena, we see various nations adjusting their military postures and strategies. Iranian and Israeli military activities. The situation in the Middle East is further complicated by a series of military activities by Iran and Israel. Iran is reported to be expanding its naval operations to Antarctica and establishing a missile control base there, a significant strategic move that extends its military reach far beyond its regional sphere. This expansion into such a remote and geopolitically sensitive area marks a notable escalation in Iran's military ambitions. Simultaneously, Israel has been actively engaging in military operations, particularly an aerial bombardment in Damascus targeting the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, and Iranian militias. These strikes near Damascus indicate Israel's continued assertiveness in countering Iranian influence and presence in Syria. The lack of detailed information about the casualties or the extent of these strikes adds an element of uncertainty to the already volatile situation. In addition to these developments, Iranian militias are repositioning themselves along the Euphrates River and in other strategic locations in Syria, presumably in anticipation of potential U.S. military responses. This repositioning reflects a heightened state of alert and preparedness among Iranian-backed forces in the region. The IRGC, a key player in Iran's regional military strategy, has been holding emergency meetings, signaling serious concern and mobilization in response to the escalating tensions. These meetings involving top commanders suggest that Iran is preparing for a range of potential scenarios, including direct military confrontations. The transcript also mentions the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, holding an emergency meeting, further underscoring the gravity with which Iran views the current situation. This high-level involvement indicates that Iran's response to the evolving crisis is being orchestrated at the highest echelons of its leadership. In summary, the military activities of Iran and Israel, characterized by strategic expansions, targeted strikes, and heightened preparedness, reflect the increasing complexity and volatility of the Middle East security environment. These developments signify a region in flux, with key players actively adjusting their strategies in response to the rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. Amidst the escalating tensions and strategic maneuvers in the Middle East, there are also significant developments regarding the deployment of U.S. military forces. U.S. military deployments. The United States is reportedly intensifying its military presence in key strategic areas. Notably, 3 U.S. B-52 bombers, which are capable of carrying long-range cruise missiles, have landed in Israel. This deployment to Israel, particularly at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, is a significant move given the B-52's capability to strike distant targets, potentially including those inside Iran. The bomber's capacity to carry both nuclear and conventional payloads enhances the strategic flexibility and deterrence value of this deployment. Additionally, more than 300 soldiers from the Illinois National Guard and their families are preparing for deployment to the Middle East as part of Operation Spartan Shield. This operation is also being supported by a brigade from Kansas, with deployments primarily focused on Saudi Arabia. The sudden increase in National Guard deployments to the region, particularly to a key U.S. ally like Saudi Arabia, is a clear indication of the U.S. bolstering its military presence and readiness in response to the escalating tensions. These deployments suggest a comprehensive U.S. military strategy that extends beyond immediate retaliatory actions against Iran. By strengthening its military posture in the Middle East, the U.S. appears to be preparing for a range of potential scenarios, including extended regional conflicts. The involvement of National Guard units, typically reserved for domestic emergencies or specific overseas assignments, in these deployments underscores the seriousness with which the U.S. is approaching the situation. This preparation indicates a recognition of the potential for broader regional implications and the necessity of having a robust military presence to address various contingencies. In essence, the movement of B-52 bombers to Israel and the deployment of National Guard troops to the Middle East reflect a strategic expansion of U.S. military capabilities in the region, highlighting the multi-layered approach of the U.S. in addressing the complex and rapidly evolving security challenges. With the United States reinforcing its military capabilities in the region, the geopolitical landscape is further shaped by political pressures and military statements from various influential figures. Political pressures and military statements. The situation has prompted strong reactions from prominent U.S. political figures. Senators like Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, John Cornyn, and Roger Wicker, all noted Republicans, are advocating for a decisive and severe military response against Iran. Their calls for action indicate a significant political pressure building within the U.S. for a robust response to the perceived Iranian aggression. This sentiment among influential lawmakers could shape the U.S. administration's approach and decision-making process regarding Iran. In northern Israel, the situation escalated with Hezbollah launching heavy missile attacks on Israeli military barracks. Israel's swift response with artillery or aerial bombardments reflects the ongoing tension and conflict in the region. These exchanges demonstrate the volatile and unpredictable nature of regional conflicts, where actions by non-state actors like Hezbollah can significantly impact the security situation. Additionally, Hamas's reported rejection of a recent ceasefire deal with Israel adds another layer of complexity to the regional dynamics. The refusal to engage in ceasefire talks suggests a continued state of hostility and the potential for further escalations in violence. On another front, the Yemeni Army's actions, including firing naval missiles at the U.S. Navy USS Lewis B. Puller, represent a direct challenge to U.S. military presence in the region. The targeting of a U.S. warship by Houthi forces, allies of Iran, is a significant escalation and could potentially provoke a strong U.S. military response. These incidents collectively indicate a region teetering on the brink of wider conflict with various actors, both state and non-state, actively involved in military engagements. The political calls for action in the U.S., combined with the military activities in Israel and Yemen, paint a picture of a region in crisis, with multiple flashpoints that could ignite broader conflicts. The evolving situation demands careful navigation to prevent further escalation and manage the diverse interests and tensions at play. As we examine the various military and political maneuvers in the region, another critical aspect emerges with the actions of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and their implications. One significant action is the seizure of an Australian-flagged tanker, carrying up to 2 million liters of diesel, in the northern Persian Gulf off the coast of Bushehr. This aggressive move by the IRGC Navy represents a direct challenge to international norms and could be seen as an escalation in the maritime domain, potentially increasing tensions with the global community. Furthermore, the IRGC's heightened state of alertness is evident from their emergency meetings, involving their top commanders. The involvement of the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah, in an emergency meeting with the leadership of the IRGC underlines the gravity with which Iran is treating the current situation. This high-level involvement suggests that Iran's response and strategies are being formulated at the highest echelons of its government and military. The actions and mobilization of the IRGC, a pivotal force in Iran's military and political landscape, demonstrate Iran's readiness to confront potential threats and its willingness to assert its power in the region. The seizure of the tanker and the strategic meetings indicate a proactive and potentially provocative stance by Iran, possibly in anticipation of U.S. or Israeli actions. These developments highlight the complexity of the regional security environment, where actions by a key player like Iran can significantly shift the dynamics and increase the potential for conflict. The IRGC's actions reflect Iran's strategic calculations and its approach to dealing with the escalating tensions, adding another layer to the multifaceted challenges in the Middle East. In the context of these regional power plays and military actions, there is also a notable increase in surveillance and reconnaissance activities by NATO, signaling heightened alertness and strategic assessment. Increased NATO reconnaissance activity. The transcript indicates a significant uptick in NATO's reconnaissance operations, particularly in Eastern Europe and along the borders with Russia. This includes extensive activities by various NATO member states, such as the United States, France, and Sweden, each conducting aerial surveillance missions in strategically important areas. The U.S. RC-135 Rivet Joint, for instance, has been reported to fly around Kaliningrad and along the borders of Russia and Belarus, areas of high strategic importance given their proximity to NATO countries and their role in Russia's military posture. Similarly, French and Swedish reconnaissance planes have been observed conducting operations along the Russian-Belarus border and in the Baltic region, areas that have been points of contention and strategic interest in the ongoing tensions with Russia. This heightened reconnaissance activity is a clear indication of NATO's vigilance and readiness to monitor potential military movements or escalations by Russia. Such surveillance is crucial for gathering intelligence, understanding enemy capabilities, and preparing for any potential conflicts. The presence of reconnaissance planes from multiple NATO countries also demonstrates a coordinated effort to maintain a comprehensive awareness of activities within and around Russia's borders. The fact that this information is being shared publicly through media sources like the one cited in the transcript suggests a strategic messaging component, signaling to Russia and other international actors that NATO is closely watching and prepared to respond to any provocative actions. This increased surveillance activity by NATO is a critical component of the alliance's broader strategy to ensure security and stability in the face of evolving threats and geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe and beyond. As NATO heightens its surveillance and preparedness in response to the evolving geopolitical landscape, there are also serious discussions and warnings within the alliance about the potential for a direct military confrontation with Russia. NATO, preparedness and warnings. The transcript reveals a growing concern within NATO about the prospect of an all-out war with Russia. Lieutenant General Alexander Schrank, a commander in NATO's military logistics, has expressed the view that NATO needs to be prepared for the possibility of Russian missile strikes in Europe if an all-out war were to occur. This statement, made in an interview with The Times, highlights the increasing apprehension about the potential for direct conflict with Russia. Furthermore, Lieutenant Admiral Rob Bauer, chair of the NATO Military Committee, emphasized earlier that NATO countries should be ready for the eventuality of a full-scale war. These statements collectively indicate a significant shift in NATO's assessment of the Russian threat, moving from a theoretical risk to a more imminent possibility. NATO commanders, including General Schrank, have cautioned that such a conflict could arise within the next few years. This timeline suggests an urgent need for NATO to bolster its defensive capabilities and preparedness. The focus on Germany as a potential target, due to its central role in NATO's logistics in Central Europe, underscores the strategic importance of the country in the alliance's defense planning. The concerns raised by NATO generals are not limited to potential Russian aggression, but also include logistical and interoperability challenges within the alliance. Issues such as the interchangeability of equipment and personnel among NATO members could hinder an effective response to a Russian offensive, indicating areas where NATO needs to improve to ensure a cohesive and rapid reaction. In summary, the growing discourse within NATO about the readiness for a potential conflict with Russia reflects the increasing tension and the need for heightened vigilance and preparedness. The acknowledgement of these challenges and the calls for action signify a pivotal moment for NATO as it grapples with the evolving security landscape in Europe and the potential threat posed by Russia.